Ready? All right. Okay, perfect. Okay. Yes, thank you so much, Dena. So yes, our 5th annual conference is happening April 23rd. We already have chosen our speakers, so those will start to come through on our email list soon. So keep your eyes peeled if you're on our Facebook or our Instagram. Or if you're not yet on our email list, go over to our website and get on there because we'll start sharing our speakers. I'm super excited about that. But this conference, we have 3 tracks and over 15 workshops, and they're all around the phase of life when your life totally changes and you're never quite the same again. And it seems like it should be really fun. And yet often it's really hard. And our real goal is to change what parenting looks like during this phase so that we begin to acknowledge it and support each other and know that we're not alone. And so we have more resources and information here for those of us who are in Arizona. And people are welcome to join us from other places as well. Although I will say that the people we have speaking are our own wonderful Arizona resources. So those of you who are from Arizona will really be able to see who we have locally who can support us in this area. So register. If you can, I would do it sooner than later just to make sure you can get in there. We use an app called Whova, and Whova actually lets you go in and message speakers, message each other, put in meetups, have conversations, almost like a little mini Facebook before the conference starts. And we'll probably open that in the next 2 weeks, so that part's really fun. And if you are low income, we do provide full scholarships for those who have WIC access. So anyway, we would love to see you there.
I am so excited for the conference. It's going to be such a beautiful opportunity to learn and build community.
Yes, yes, it's going to be amazing. And there is a QR code. You can see it, the little dinosaur on the bottom left corner. So if you want to go straight to register, you can go ahead and do that.
So cute. Well, thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and get started with today. I want to go through our gathering code of conduct real quick. If you've been here before, you might be familiar with this. But here in our 4th trimester villages, we hold all people as knowledgeable and capable. We ask that you be kind and courteous. No hate speech or bullying. No promotions or spam, so please give more than you take when you're attending the villages. Respect everybody's privacy and refrain from giving any medical advice. All right, today's topic is one that is really close to home for me. And I've discovered it's close to home for many other moms as well. So last village, we had mamas complete a survey, and one of the topics that came up in the feedback was losing yourself in motherhood. People wanted to talk about this experience, this transition into motherhood, and that feeling of losing who you were as you're stepping into becoming a mom, and that friction that we can feel. And how do we move through that, right? How do we reconnect with ourselves? And so that's what our topic is today. That's what we're going to be talking about. Something that comes to mind when I think of this is, what does it mean to be mom and still be me, right? When I had my son, I felt like every ounce of who I was just went to the wayside, and my entire identity, every waking moment and sleeping, very few sleeping moments, were all about being mom. It was, how do I feed my baby? How do I connect with my baby? How do I read my baby's cues? Am I doing this right? Like, this is all new to me. Are you getting any milk from me? How do I figure out all of this stuff that was just constant questions in my brain? And my whole, like, all of my thinking went into, how do I do this? And am I doing it right? And am researching, connecting with other people to make sure, like, oh, let me connect. I connected with Jenny. She was my lactation consultant. And I was like, my baby doesn't stop crying. What's wrong? And being able to just figure out those clues of piecing that together. And before you know it, years go by and you're like, wait a second, where did I go? Like, am I just only mom? And that was my story. I know that's not everybody's story, but my journey into motherhood, I was blessed to have 12 weeks home with my son after having him. And it was a blessing to spend that time together. And when the 12 weeks was up, I was like, I get to go to work. I get to go do something that's me, that I'm familiar with. And so I went back to work, and when I went back to work, I was stepping into a new position. And so yet again, I was learning something new, right? It wasn't all familiar. And I went in like head first. I dove into work, and I was like, work is my identity. Like work is me. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm mom or I'm my job. And I didn't have a Dena anymore. I didn't have hobbies that I pursued. I didn't do things in my life that were just because they bring me joy, and they're just for me. It was all about, if I'm at work, I'm my job, and if I'm at home, I'm mom. And it took a toll on me, and I didn't realize it until seriously when my son turned 4. He was 4 years old. I was starting to be like, wait a second, I've lived for 4 years in these two identities, and I feel off. I don't feel like myself. I find myself reminiscing about my life previous to having my son, missing those moments and those experiences, getting to be spontaneous or staying in bed until 10 a.m. or like just getting to live, like go eat when I want to eat and eat uninterrupted and have these very basic things that used to be a part of who I am and used to be things I really enjoyed and loved. And so I started on a journey of what does it mean to be mom and still be me? Have any of you guys asked yourself that question or found yourself asking that question or feeling that way? You can feel
Yes.
free to unmute. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. I think with every child, actually, it happened.
Yeah, I definitely, I think being a mom, kind of felt like my entire identity. And so then switching out of that, and it was like a new discovery of having to figure out who I was, because I guess I didn't really know who I was before being a mom either. So when I became a mom, that was like having my first identity and then finding a new one after that.
That's such an important point. Sometimes we don't take time in our life to figure out who we are, and we just jump it into the next big thing. So I learned about this term that it actually defines the experience of stepping into motherhood, and it's called matresence. And it was coined by an anthropologist named Dena Raphael. And it's the term to describe the process of becoming a mother, the developmental stage of our lives, which is filled with physical, psychological, and emotional changes. And when I learned this word, I was like, ding, 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 ding. It's not a Dena problem. Like, no, I'm not I'm not broken. It's not a fault of mine that I feel this way. It doesn't mean anything about me. This is a natural stage of life that nobody talks about. Like, I know all about adolescence, right? Adolescence, like that term is thrown out there all the time. We know when you think back to adolescence, you think of like a time in your life where you face some big changes and like complications with your body, with how you think, with how you feel, with how you go through the world, with what you like, with who you are. You step into defining yourself. And that adolescence, think of matrescence as adolescence, but motherhood. It's that same, our body's going through that same change, our hormones, right? How we think, how we feel, the process, like the things that take up space in our mind, the connections we're building in our brain. Our brain literally, when you become a mom, people talk about mom brain, like it's real. Literally, our brain prunes connections and creates space for us to build new connections that we need to learn in order to do our job as a mom. And the structure, the physical structure of our brain is changing. The chemicals that our brain is producing is changing. And we're not taught to prepare or brace ourselves for matrescence and that stage of life like we are taught for adolescence. Adolescence, I feel like there's a lot of empathy around it. The adults that are supporting the people going through adolescence understand that this is a time, a metamorphosis, right, in your life of stepping into this next version of yourself. And when you're a mom, sometimes you feel this pressure of doing it all. Like, I need to step into motherhood, and I need to be the person I was before, and I have to uphold all the responsibilities I did before having a child, and I need to do it good. I need to do it good, and I need to do it by myself. We have this like really unrealistic like standard that we hold ourselves to, that because that's there because we don't educate ourselves and our surroundings and our support systems around, we're not educated around matrescence, like this next developmental stage in our lives. And so I'm curious, what has your guys' experience been in matrescence? If you're currently going through that transition in your life, or if you have in the past, what was your experience like?
I'll speak for me. I think that being a very type A person, my experience was that with my first child, I felt like I could do all of it. And maybe I kind of succeeded with some of that until I didn't. But it was holding myself to this very, very high standard of what I thought motherhood was, and then being super frustrated when I didn't actually meet it. To the point that I think I was mad at my husband a lot because he wasn't meeting my expectations of motherhood or fatherhood. And I was also maybe just not taking the time to enjoy it in the way that I now wish that I had. I think I got a little bit better at that with my second and third children, but yeah, I mean, and not really being told that my life would change other than, oh, you're not going to get any sleep, right? That was mostly what I was told. And I was like, well, I can handle sleep deprivation, so I've got this. But yeah, and definitely not being told that my brain would change, that my interests would change, that I would wonder who I was now, and that I would wonder if I was still good at anything else, which I think is the other piece that really came up for me. I was like, oh, well, your brain is so focused now on this child. Like, I don't know if you have room in there to be this other person that you used to be, right? Like, you're too worried about your child all the time. How could you possibly be good at your job or anything else, really? Yeah.
That hits home for me too. Like, if everything feels hard, you question your ability to do anything, right? Like,
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing, Jenny.
I have a kind of different experience, but in my job, I have to be really high functioning every day. It's what is expected out of researchers and PhDs. And there was a lot of time where I just didn't have access to that information. And then I would feel like I wasn't doing okay in motherhood and mom guilt for that. But then that I also wasn't advancing my career enough for my family, or even maintaining it enough to secure, financial stability for my family. And I was doing okay as long as I could keep those identities very separate. Like my motherhood identity, very separate from my work identity. And then when COVID happened and we all went home, that became a serious problem because now everything was all mixed up. And what I noticed is that I was incredibly fortunate to be on a team with a manager that really valued authenticity and self. And I had never given her or anybody else around me, my teammates and coworkers, an opportunity for me to trust them in that space until I had to. And what I found is once I was able to kind of stop compartmentalizing those identities and be really comfortable being my whole full self in all places, that things got much easier and much more clear. But that was really scary because just like you said before, I don't think that everybody is prepared to talk about the challenges, the real challenges, and the real supports that may or may not be there as you're navigating that change.
Absolutely. And I feel like when people do talk about the transition into motherhood, it feels taboo to talk about the hard. And so they don't. And it's almost like we forget that you can live in both lands. Like you can be overjoyed, madly in love, beyond grateful, and having the hardest time of your life at the same time. Like that can exist, right? That is real. That is life. That is the complexity of living. And being able to talk about that has so much power to it. And I love, Jack, what you just said about being able to step into your authentic self in all areas of your life. Like that releases the pressure. Like you don't have to pretend to be all in on something and not have another part of your life that holds you, right? Beautifully said. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share their experiences?
I'm sorry, I had jumped on a call. What are we sharing right now?
Yeah, we're talking about our experiences in transitioning into motherhood.
Okay.
So that journey, that transition called matrescence, what was that like for you?
Super hard. And if I'm honest, it's still hard. Yeah, I mean, I think the same thing that you had said at the beginning of, I'm at home with my baby. I love him. He's great. I've been waiting for this for 9 months. He's finally here. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm not used to this. I need to get to work. This is what I do. And so then you get to work and you're like, oh my God, I love it. This is my identity. I'm just, yay. And then you're trying to handle work and home. And then you're like, where did I go? Like the things that I enjoy, the people I hang out, the things I used to do before baby. And it's like, oh my God. And then I think on top of it, being a single mom and having to manage everything all by myself all the time. I think that adds a huge layer of just really feeling lost in that transition to motherhood and not really feeling like an identity, because I feel like I'm always a mother 24/7 all the time because I don't ever get it off because I'm doing it by myself. So, I mean, there's definitely like roller coasters, right? With everything in life, but I feel like definitely the transition into motherhood is a roller coaster all the time.
Yeah, and I am just in awe of you and all single parents who have to do that and be on all the time by themselves. Like,
Yeah, I think I feel like from my experience, that's the hardest piece, because I have to remind myself that it's like I'm a go-getter and I love to do things, but I have to constantly remind myself, like, hold up, Tandy, it's just you. You can't do it all. You're not Superwoman. You might need to take a step back. Can you really do that? Should you do that? So that is the constant battle in my head, which kind of, it makes my identity as who I am kind of change based off of the different things that I know that I have responsibility for right now. So
that brings up such a valuable point in my mind as well, as like our identity in this transition is ever changing, right? We go through this when we bring our child into the world, but then we go through it at every stage where something big changes in our lives. We have to adapt and go through this again. It's ongoing. Thank you so
That's
much.
what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, like, I feel like I've been going through this transition for 10 years. Like it never stops. Like I'm just always peeling back another layer of it and trying to discover like who I am now at this age with my child at this age and who I am gonna be, next year and what, all it's always changing.
Yeah, it's an evolution, right? As our children grow. And I assume that continues too. Like, I mean, my baby's only 5, but I assume when he's like ready to go off into the world and leave the house, like that's going to be a whole nother like upheaval of who am I and what do I do now? Like, beautiful. Thank you all for sharing. I appreciate your insight and your stories that you shared about your journey. One of the largest reasons we experience a sense of losing ourselves in motherhood is because we're evolving into the next version of ourselves. And this is something I have to constantly tell myself. We're not meant to be the same person we were before we became a parent, right? We're meant to evolve and transform from the caterpillar to the butterfly, and to tell ourselves, like there's a saying, patience butterfly, right? Patience butterfly. Like you're going through the metamorphosis, and have patience with that transition and that discomfort when you're in your chrysalis, right? And you're like, everything's shaking and like moving and completely changing in your life, and you're coming out on the other end, right? And this metamorphosis is a piece of our journey over and over again in motherhood. And reminding myself, it's been important to say, okay, like that was me then, this is still me now, but who am I becoming next, right? Like I'm on the verge of blossoming, becoming this next version of myself. If I take the boxes away, right, of what I'm trying so desperately to like get back to those feelings that I missed from Dena pre-child, like I want those feelings back so bad, and I want to do it the same way, but I can't. The boxes aren't fitting. I gotta break out of that and transform into the butterfly. And I have to remind myself that constantly. Like I am somebody who daydreams. I don't know about y'all, but I could live in my head all day, and I'll sit here and daydream, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, come on, Dena, like, let's daydream not about how it used to be, but how it's going to be, right? And open up my brain to the possibilities of what's ahead of me, rather than trying to get back to the feelings I had from what's behind me. Can you guys relate with that at all?
This one's hard because I think that we get exactly the opposite message to us over and over and over again. Like get back to how you were, get your body back to how it was, or get your mind, like, don't worry, kids won't inconvenience you at all. Get back to your lifestyle. And so even if you in your mind are like, okay, I know I'm going somewhere else beautiful, like you're consistently going to be hearing, go back.
Yes. It's that bounce back, right? Like bounce back physically, bounce back emotionally, bounce back with your like time, your personality, your responsibilities. And it's like, oh, you had your baby and now like they're here now. Cool. Like, let's go. I get that. That is like the biggest message in the world around us. And it's hard to honor and give ourselves that space to be like, no, like she had her time, right? She had her time. And now
I know it's so funny because it's the message that we get all the time of, you need to look like how you looked before you had your baby. And I'm like, I had a baby. Like, I'm not going to look how I look like I had a baby. Like, do you understand what it meant to make a human and carry a human for 9 months? And it's just not going to go back to being exactly how that was. It's just not. And then now I talk to people a lot about how like our brains just change when we have all the research that's coming out about like how our brain changes when pregnancy happens and after having a baby. And I'm like, yeah, no, there's like, pregnancy is a big, huge deal. It's not something that like you just do. It's a big, huge deal. So things are going to be different afterwards.
Yes. Beautiful point. Oh.
I love how you have on this slide, creating space to grieve your past self. I think that might be one of the biggest pieces. I know that I talked about how I like to go to water. Sometimes when I go to water and I'm alone, I literally put on a song to just cry. And I know that sounds really funny to say, but I'm not doing it because I'm actively super awfully sad. I'm doing it because I need a space to grieve. And I think that is a piece of it, right? Like if we're told we have to just bounce back, then we don't get a chance to, I don't know, have space, right? Have space to grieve that piece where, yeah, I can try my best, but there's still something there that's never gonna be the same again. And how do I reconcile that? So I love that you put that there. I think it's a huge piece.
That's a great point, Jenny, because I feel like I often miss even just the stages of like when my kids were smaller. You know, I miss just being there. And so I feel like I'm always grieving what's gone because I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I wanted to or something, or it went too fast, or I was too in the middle of dealing with other things that I look back a lot and I miss that time. And so I grieve a lot too of like who I used to be, who I was before I had kids, all the things that are gone that seem to be going so quickly.
Yeah, maybe part of that is just being human. I don't know. Maybe we as mothers see that a little bit more clearly because we watch our children grow, right? But yeah.
That like divide within us too. Like I want to be present all the time, right? And soak this in if I can. And then your brain's like, and I got to do 50,000 things simultaneously. Be present and accomplish your to-do list.
Keep your child from dying, right? Don't forget that one.
Yeah, that's the thing I noticed too, is I'm trying to, because they do grow so fast, like Tiffany was saying that, and you know that you missed some time and you grieve that. So then you try to be present and your brain's just like, it's too much. It's too much. I need to offload. I need to offload. And you're like, no, we gotta look at this. We gotta admire it. We gotta love it. And then your brain's like, no, can't do it. Too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a constant battle between wanting to escape and be like your own self, and then like also be really present and soak up all the memories and remember it. It's really conflicting.
It is. So sharing some of the things I have on this slide, the question that always comes to my mind, so patience butterfly, but how do you transform, right? It's like not just sitting there being like, okay, the transformation is happening to me, like I'm going to allow it. Like it's a lot of work, right? And it's a lot of intentionality that we put into transforming and being able to step into that piece of ourselves that allows ourselves to become who we are, despite societal pressures. Right? Despite the messages, every single like place that we look about how we should be, despite the expectations that we have of ourselves that may be created from our upbringing or the culture that we live in of what it means to be a mom or a woman or a partner or somebody who's working and raising a child or staying at home and raising a child. Like we have these societal and cultural expectations upon us everywhere we look that creates these expectations for ourselves. And how do we navigate through that? And so I shared a few things that I've been actively practicing. I'm no master, right? I don't know if I'll ever master this, but I'm practicing it intentionally. And the first thing is increasing your awareness around the friction you feel in this journey. And where does this friction come from? So sometimes I go through life feeling, like I feel so like, why? I'll go to bed at night and I'm like, what did I accomplish? What was it? I don't know. Every time I sat down to accomplish something, I got distracted or I got pulled away. Like, what did I do today? Can't tell you, right? Like I feel that way and I'll feel so, and then I can live in that, or I can say like, oh, I'm feeling, like, what is this, right? I'm feeling this heaviness right now. What is it? Where is it coming from? Why do I feel that way? I feel stretched too thin, right? I feel like I have to do 1,000 things. Why do I feel I have to do those things? Why? Oh, because of this, and this, right? Because that's how I was raised, because that's how it was role modeled in my family growing up, right? Because that's the agreement that me and my partner made. And we decided that like we were going to hold these set responsibilities and it's not working and I don't know how to undo it because I don't know how to ask for help. Right? I don't feel secure in asking for help. Why don't I feel secure in asking for help? And it's like digging down and peeling back that onion layer by layer to understand like, where does this feeling come from? Once I recognize the feeling, I assess, where does it come from? And sometimes I do that in my head. And sometimes it's too hard to do in my head because my head's holding too much information that I literally have to write it down. And I need to like have like an active practice of writing down what I'm thinking so that when I get distracted, I'm like, oh no, what was I saying? And I come back to what I'm writing down, and I'm literally like, I can't just have like a random thought pop in, or else I have to physically set down the pen and walk away. And then it's another clue, like, no, finish your thought. Where does this come from? I know it's uncomfortable to think about, right? It's like forcing myself through that. Another thing that I think is important is understand what belief patterns may be limiting you from evolving. And your journey through addressing the first bullet point on this list is going to help you address that second one. And when we go through in a little bit here, we'll do a practice together to build some muscle memory, right? Like practice helps us like create like a way that we can implement this into our life and pull back on it. We'll practice together how we can do this. But we often go through life without even recognizing the belief patterns that we have that are holding us back, that are limiting us, right? And all of us do this. There's no human in the world that doesn't do this. This is a normal part of being a human, and it's how our beautiful complex brains work. But we develop beliefs, right? Beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world around us. And that's the structure and the confines that we live within for our life. And some of these beliefs serve us really, really well, right? And some of these beliefs limit us, and they stop us from seeing opportunities and possibilities for ourselves, or stop us from feeling and honoring all that we did accomplish when we're going to bed and we feel like we did nothing, right? So understanding what belief patterns may be limiting you from evolving. Another thing that I do to transform is I identify what I miss and the way it made me feel. So the key point is the feeling. If I say, and I'm like, oh my God, I miss, so something I've like literally been daydreaming about is laying in bed in the morning, just laying in bed. Like I miss it so much. I miss like a slow morning where people don't need me and they don't pull on me or tug me or ask me to go make food. And I can just lay in bed and feel the warmth of the bed, right? And I'm asking myself, why? Why do I miss that? I miss a slow start. I miss like observing and feeling the little things. I might not have a 10 a.m. sleep in my near future, but what else can I do to give myself moments of that feeling of a slow start in the morning, or a sacred moment that feels nice to me? What can I control to give myself that? And don't put a time limit on it. It doesn't have to be till 10 a.m., right? It can be like 30 seconds, 1 minute of a moment where it's sacred and I am soaking in that feeling so that I can give myself that dose of the feeling I'm missing. And then it's taking action. I'm really good at daydreaming. I'm not so good at taking action, right? I'm really good at thinking about all the things that might feel good. And then when I go to take action, I'm like, but I have a lot of excuses. Like, there's a lot of reasons why I shouldn't do that. That seems scary. That seems hard. I have to plan. I need to trust a babysitter. I'd have to like ask somebody to help, right? If I want to go take this action. And then creating space, like Jenny said, to grieve your past self. And that looks different for every single one of us. Grief is not a linear process. And I love that on social media, it's become more common to talk about. Grief isn't something you experience and then it goes away, right? Grief is something that you create space for in your life, and that you learn your life builds and grows around. It stays a part of you, right? We may always have moments of missing our past self, or missing our child being a baby, or stages of their life, or times that we feel like we were really distracted and we couldn't be present. We may always have moments where our brain goes back to that place, but it's the stigma that you attach to it that makes it healing or not healing, right? Grieving is taking that stigma away and saying it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to honor that. It's okay to go stand at the ocean and put on a sad song and cry. It's okay to do that, Jenny. Like, that is healthy. That's creating space to feel. your feelings. And we often aren't told that we're allowed to express our feelings and seek out means to express our feelings in the world around us. From a young age, there's a lot of messages that you receive that if your feelings aren't like beautiful and graceful and accommodating to people around you, that there's no space for them in the world. That's not what we want our children to feel, right? That's not what we want to instill in them, but oftentimes we're living that way ourselves, right? Sometimes I want to be a grown adult having a tantrum because it feels good. And my son got to have a tantrum today. And then 5 minutes later, he got to go have fun and it didn't define his day. He didn't have a bad day. He wasn't a tantruming boy. He just had a moment and the emotions came out and then he went on. And I'm like, that sounds healing. Like, can I go do that? Like, can I go have my tantrum and not have to ever talk about it again and not have to ever think about it again and just feel good afterwards and have a day that is a cool day, not a tantrum day? Like, can I do that? Yeah, I can. If I create the space for my body to grieve or feel the feelings it needs to feel, and then give it permission to move out of that when it's ready. And that sounds so taboo to say in our world, right? Like, yes, mom, go have your tantrum. But do it. Go have a tantrum if you need to have a tantrum. And then when you feel better, you get to feel better and do what feels good. That's okay. Are there any other things that you guys have learned of ways that you have found to help yourself in this moment of transformation of how to help yourself transform into that butterfly?
You know, for me, what comes up is like, I like to think about them as snapshot moments I take in my head, right? Like moments that I want to like hold on to, where I'm like, I sit and I'm watching something. Maybe it's like my kid doing something. Maybe it's like a feeling I have and I sit in it and I'm like, okay, like keep track of this. We're going to take a picture. And so I'll really do that. And that, I guess it's like intense gratitude almost is what it is, but like trying to capture that and hold it in my heart. I think that has helped a lot, especially with some of the feelings of grief over my children growing up, because I have moments I can imagine in my head. Like one of the ones that came up when you were talking about this, I have this image of me lying on my bed with my second child when he was 2, and I was nursing him, and the window was open and the light was like hitting his face, and he has this gorgeous curly blonde hair, and it was like, this is motherhood. Like to me, like it was at that moment I was like, this is like the joy that I thought I was going to get, and I have it in my head, like I can bring it up. And so yeah, I think that has helped some too, because I can go back to that and be in that moment and be like, oh, you had that. So yes, intense gratitude.
Very intentional gratitude too. Like getting to like intentionally tell yourself, I'm remembering this. Beautiful. What else do you guys do to help yourself through this transformation?
I like to look at photographs and just kind of remember the feelings that went with whatever I'm looking at in the photo. So it could be from things from before that I can sit and kind of remember and those feelings. And then also like pictures of like just us doing fun, different things, and remembering those feelings and seeing him smile or seeing me smile or seeing like our family doing something fun together. So I really like to, I take a lot of pictures because I like to look back at them, and they just feel and bring something different to the table for me.
Beautiful. Both of you guys have brought up like sensory oriented things, like remembering, like tapping into your senses. What do you see? What do you feel in this moment? And like cataloging that, right?
Amazing how much better. I don't know about you, but I look back at my photos when I literally did not want to be in the picture because I thought I looked so awful with my new baby. And I look back and I was like, dang, you look good. Yeah, Yes, right? So it's better than we
Yes.
thought it was at the time.
Yes, yes, yes. And then there are moments too where I'm not in pictures. And so then I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad that I'm not, like, I must not have been feeling great about myself. And so
Yep.
then I'm not in the pictures as much. And so then I remember, like, okay, this is what you use for yourself. And, you know, he likes to look at the pictures too. So you might want to include yourself in some pictures.
Yep, absolutely. Oh yeah.
A good point. Thank you guys for sharing. Would anybody else like to share?
I had to go, for me, helping move forward meant going way backwards, and really looking at kind of assumptions or things I brought with me from my past or my childhood, and helping kind of normalize and not normalize some of those things to give myself freedom to become something different. So that kind of really deep introspection into my past had really helped me feel comfortable with moving forward.
Beautiful. It's like understanding yourself and what brought you to this point, right? Getting curious. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so I want to expand on, and this is kind of something you just brought up, Jack. Like, I want to expand on how do we shed the extra weight of our limiting beliefs, right? So the limiting beliefs and the societal pressures around us are not superficial. They are deep rooted, right? And they are ingrained and every ounce of the existence of the world around us, right? And the relationships that we have and the places that we live and the places that we go and the things that we see and the way that we were raised, right? The patterns of our own thought processes, the architecture of our own brain on what relationships should look like, right? And how they should be, all the way dating back to when we were an infant, right? And our brain's starting to build that architecture of what a relationship is and what is this definition of this type of person, right? And what is the definition of mom? What does that mean? And so this is built into us and is ingrained so deeply within us that thinking about how do you where do you begin can feel overwhelming. It can feel hard. And so let's expand on a common barrier that we experience through this evolution to matrescence. And that's limiting beliefs. For me, limiting beliefs were not easy to learn to figure out for myself. Like I could listen to people talk about how to figure it out, but when I sat down to try and think of my own limiting beliefs, it was really, really hard to do so through my own lens, right? But if I thought of limiting beliefs in the people around me, it was much easier. You know how it's easier to like look out and like assess and think of all the things that don't feel right around the people around us. But then when we like turn the finger back, we're like, wait, us too? Wait a second, maybe that does apply to me. And so that's a cool technique to learn to try and gather this. But I'd like to do a practice together to see how we can start unraveling some of these limiting beliefs in our own life, in the societal expectations around us that feel unrealistic or our own unrealistic standards, so that we can begin navigating through that. So the societal pressures we face about what you should be like as a mother create impossible standards that we compare ourselves to. So that word should, there's like this phrase, like stop shitting on yourself, right? Like stop doing that to yourself. But there's this belief in motherhood that we should do it all. Like this woman with a bajillion arms in this picture holding her baby, and she's doing it with a smile. And all put together in this like nice little apron outfit. What? No. Who is this woman? So what pressures do you guys feel like you face in motherhood? What are the pressures that are like hitting you all over the place?
I think one of them for me is the one to enjoy every moment. I think that's the one that feels the most suffocating at times, because it feels like there's no way to possibly do that, and yet I still feel like I should do that all the time.
Mm-hmm. that.
I struggle with the idea that like mom should always be the first primary person to meet the needs of their children. Like, I'm sure this happens to everybody, but like my kids need something. It doesn't matter if I'm working or on a meeting and dad's just sitting down. Mom, they go to mom first. And that seems to be the reasonable thing, and expectation that's always spoken about. Like it should always be mom first. And that is really, really challenging to deal with.
Mm-hmm. What a good one, man. I
Yeah.
didn't even think of that one. Mm.
Yeah, and then you feel sort of guilty when you go ask your dad, right? Because you're like, well, but I'm mom. They expect me to do it, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, you feel guilty on multiple fronts for that one because you're like, okay, I just like turned my kids away and it should have been me. And then the other one, when you help them, like you give into that, then like meanwhile I'm like on a meeting, I'm like, now I'm a crappy employee because I had to like stop and meet my kids' needs. So you can't win.
Oh yes.
I feel this. I was telling my son this morning I was going to come upstairs for a meeting. And I was like, my door is going to be closed. I'm going to be in a meeting. If you need anything, go find dad. My husband has never once said that to him. He has never once said, if I'm in my office in a meeting, go find mom. Never once. Because guess what? My son does not go find him. Like,
So true. Oh my gosh.
And it's not for lack of trying, because I will overhear from across the house my husband be like, did you seriously just open mom's door? So it's not like it's like, you know, an internal family thing. It's just this odd perception that it should always be mom.
but I feel like that's because it is us though. Like the second something happens, we're like, zoom, like we go. Meanwhile, my husband will just be like, you cool? You cool? Good. Where I'm like, what's going on? Like naturally I respond in this way. It's like I programmed you. I don't know. Oh goodness.
Yep.
Would anybody else like to share the pressures that you face in motherhood? And if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can message in the chat too. That's totally cool.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. So I have definitely faced some pressure that I think I've put on myself to be like an adventure mom. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but even before I had my baby, I would follow all these Instagram accounts of these moms out there like hiking and camping and backpacking with their babies. And, you know, all my friends, those are things that I used to love to do before I had my baby. And so I feel like a lot of my friends are like, oh, you're going to be such a cool adventure mom. Well, it turns out now that I am a mom, I'm kind of just a lazy mom. And I would much rather just make my life as easy as possible because motherhood has turned out to be kind of harder than I thought. So, you know, going off camping with my baby and hiking and all those things kind of just makes the whole thing feel harder for me and doesn't actually bring me very much joy. So I haven't done very much of that with my baby and I don't really want to. And I kind of just feel like there's a time and a place for that, but I've struggled a little bit with that, having to change my perception of, okay, this doesn't mean I'm failing or I'm not living up to the kind of mom I thought I would be. It's just kind of okay if that's not what I'm enjoying right now in my life.
Yes, absolutely. Man, I love the awareness that you, Jack and Jenny, you all have just shared the awareness of like, wait a second, like this is how my brain was like formulating that it should be, and it's not working, and that's okay, right? Like at first you said like, I'm just more of a lazy mom, and it made me chuckle because I can relate to that. But then when I think of the word lazy, I'm like, there's a negative connotation tied to that word, right? It's not that we're lazy. It's just that we're redefining what we find joy in and what feels good to us. And this feels good in this stage of life, right? I'm receiving this as my experience for joy and feeling good and enjoying the moment and loving life rather than what it used to be, right? At that transition. It's beautiful that you have that awareness and that you're learning to navigate into like, no, it's okay.
I think that resonates with me, not necessarily the adventurous part, but I think I thought I would have way more energy to do like super fun things all the time. Like basically as soon as I got off work, I'd be like race into the park every day, or I'd be like, I don't know, doing something exciting and fun. And mostly I'm just like, making dinner, maybe, or, maybe sitting with my kids if I'm lucky, giving them a hug, like all that's good. But yeah, I agree. I think I thought I was going to be a lot more fun in terms of doing things than I actually am.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be the Pinterest mom. Nah, since I've had my son, I have not opened Pinterest. I opened it a lot while I was pregnant, right? I had all the plans, but no, I have not gone back to Pinterest to implement those plans. I think this also comes true in terms of, sorry, Jack, what were you going to say?
Maybe the Pinterest thing made me laugh. I was totally like that too. And then like, I'm that Pinterest fail person, where it's like, I tried it because this is my, my goal. And that's like not what it ended up with, because I didn't feel like committing that mental energy. But related to that, like also the pressure, just know all the things, know all the appointments, know where all the things are, know what's coming next, know what needs to come next. Like knowing all the things in our minds is absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
What clothes do not fit anymore? We have to know those things too, right? Like no one else knows those things except us.
Right.
Yeah.
Wear the blanket that they used to like 4 years ago and suddenly started to want to like again when we donated it or why we donated it, like knowing all the things.
Oh, so true. My son was getting out of bed this morning. He's like, remember when I told you about that place in Hawaii with the water and there's a slide in a tube and there's a light one and a dark one? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I was like, smile and nod or I'm getting yelled at. Like, smile and nod, keep going. We will not have a meltdown around this. I cannot know it.
I don't even remember my kids' birth weights. And like, I always feel so guilty about that. Cause like, aren't we supposed to know like the time of day they were born, how long they were and how much they weigh? Like, I can't remember. I would have to look it up on a birth certificate.
Yes. Oh my God. I could not remember that either. No. Another one that comes up for me is prior to having children, I thought I was going to be a mom who had many children. I wanted my own little like sports team of children. And I had a vision of what that would look like. And then I had my son and I'm like, I don't want to birth another child. Like, I don't want to go through that postpartum heaviness and season again. And I don't want that for myself. And I wish, and I still dream of having a large family. And I still dream of ways that could happen. And then the thought and the pressure of society of everyone asks, are you going to have another? When are you having another? Your son's 5. Like, how old do you want them to be apart? And I'm like, I'm having one. Like, it's my son. Like, that's what I've chose. And there's these like constant reminders of what you wanted your family to be like versus what it's morphed into being, and accepting that difference. And I think that could be in terms of the amount of children you have. I think that could be in terms of like where you live, what your days are filled with, the type of mom you thought you were going to be. It could be in terms of anything, but that's another big one that I feel like we hold and juggle. Okay.
I almost feel like people accept the choice not to have any children more than they accept the choice to have just one child. I feel this the same way. That's our path as well. And yeah, I've been surprised how much pressure people have kind of put on us to have another. And when we couldn't get pregnant, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's fine if you decide not to have children. And now that we have one, it's like, no, you have to have more. And I don't know why that's out there, but yeah, I feel that same way. It's funny that there aren't more families just kind of owning, I just like having one child. That's, the lifestyle that we want.
And there's so many messages out there around doing it different. And they range from messages around like, Don't you want your child to have somebody to play with? Don't you want them to have like all these experiences to like all the way to like, well, when you're so old, you can't take care of yourself. Now it's your only child's responsibility to take care of you and you're burdening them. I'm like, why are you telling me this? What? Like, why are we even thinking about that? Why is that now a pressure I have to worry about and keep in my head? Like, why do I have to juggle that plate too? What is this? No, I reject it. I don't want it. Don't accept that. It's crazy. Oh. Okay. So for the sake of time, we have like 15 minutes left, and I was going to do an exercise with you guys to tune in and ground yourself and then do some journaling together. And I think it might be helpful if I think I still want to do the tuning in exercise because I think the muscle memory is really powerful. And then you guys can like screenshot or take a picture of the journaling prompts if you'd like to do them on your own. And be able to work through some of these unrealistic standards that you're identifying, the limiting beliefs that you're identifying, and how do you want to move forward from there. And so if you want to screenshot this journal prompt or take a picture of it real quick, I encourage you to do the activity, do the journaling. Even if you're like, journaling's not for me, try it, right? Push yourself outside of that comfort zone because it takes action and it takes doing things differently to get a different result in our life. And then once you do that, I'd love to lead you through a grounding exercise that I do. And what I tell myself is if I've done something once, I can catalog the memory of how it felt and how I did it before, and I can come back to that. And so the exercise that we're going to do together, I want you, as you're experiencing it, I want you to remember how it's feeling inside yourself and remind yourself that you can do this at any point in time by yourself. And it's a very simple exercise of connecting back into your body and grounding yourself through like a progressive muscle relaxation. So I'm sure you've heard of progressive muscle relaxation before, or you might have gone to a class or something where they're like, now relax this part of your body. That's what we're going to be doing. And I invite you to join us. And I'm going to put the screen back to this so it's not distracting. Okay. So if you're in a space where you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to close your eyes. If you're not in a space where you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you can like soften your gaze. So do what feels safe for you and is appropriate for the environment that you're in and for your body. I invite you to put your feet on the ground and feel the ground beneath your feet. Sitting in your chair or wherever you are, whatever you're sitting on, feeling that chair or couch beneath your bottom, feeling the back of it against your back, and just feel your body being supported and held right now. And then when you're ready, you can take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And on your exhale, imagine that you're exhaling all of your tension. And this is how we're going to breathe together. We're going to breathe in through our nose and out through our mouth. And you're welcome to breathe out a sigh if you feel that's right for your body. You can just breathe out air heavily and push it out, or you can naturally exhale out of your mouth, whatever feels good to release. And as you're sitting there with your eyes softened or closed, and you breathe in, become aware of your toes and your feet, feeling them on the ground, maybe wiggling them. And as you exhale, relax. Relax your feet and your toes. Relax your ankles. And as you inhale, notice your calves, your knees, your thighs. And as you exhale, relax, release, let your legs drop down, feeling supported by your seat. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And as you inhale, notice your hips, your pelvis, your bottom. And as you exhale, Release any tension that you're storing there. Consciously letting those muscles melt. Trusting your seat to support you. And breathe in through your nose. And notice and feel your stomach expanding. Notice the muscles in your lower back. Notice your uterus. And as you exhale, relax, soften your belly, relax the muscles in your back, release any tension. And as you breathe in, notice your ribs raising and your back filling with air as your upper torso expands. And as you exhale, feel it soften and release, relax. Noticing your shoulders, your neck. Maybe moving your head if you need to, release the tension. And as you exhale, drop your shoulders down from your ears. Noticing your arms and your hands. Releasing any tension you're holding. Noticing your face, your jaw, your cheeks, your temples, your forehead, your eyes, the top of your head. And release and relax. Relaxing your entire body. Feeling the weight of your body in your chair. Noticing the stillness you feel in your body. Noticing how with every exhale, your body relaxes deeper. Your belly softens. Feeling yourself in this moment, knowing you're safe. Knowing this is who you are. This is the vessel you get to live your life in. Giving yourself gratitude and space to feel fully in your body and feel stillness and quiet the thought. Feel the stillness of the outside expectations of everything outside of your body that pushes and pressures and asks and expects of you. You can't change anything on the outside, but you can change everything on the inside. You can find this peace simply by breathing in and breathing out and feeling your body release. When you feel ready, you can begin to move. Maybe you blink your eyes open and you come back to this moment. Remind yourself that you can find that state of peace at any point in time. You have the power to return to that state. And this is a state, a beautiful state to journal in. This is a state that you can begin reflecting after you've quieted the outside world, and you can begin assessing yourself and talking yourself through what you need. You can begin creating action plans for yourself or thought processes to replace your beliefs, your limiting beliefs with growth, empowering based beliefs. And if you find and experience any anxiety and stress as you journal, remember you have your breath to come back to at any point in time. And then take action. Use these powerful tools that you've tapped into, right? Use that self-awareness that you built. Use the empowering beliefs that you built take action on the action steps that you write down for yourself, right? Awareness is the key. It's the key to stepping into this. Replacing your empowering beliefs is what's going to create the sustainability in your life. And that takes intentional work. And the action is what implements it and makes it reality. Do you guys have any questions? Anything you'd like to share as we wrap up for the day?
Megan, if you want to pop us off of Facebook Live.